Welcome to Algebra 2. I want to begin speaking about a topic that should be a bit of review for you is solving equations. So let's begin. So let's Algebra 2, and we're going to begin with some solving equations. Now, typically you do see solving equations as solving for an individual variable. Many times you are solving for x, a variable x. So I'm not going to go too much over the general theory of this, as you have most likely seen this previously, but I would like to go through a couple of problems just to be sure that it's fresh in your mind. So let's begin with a problem. Let's look at this problem here. Let's say that we are given b times the quantity of 5px minus 3c is equal to a times qx minus 4. All right, now this may look a little bit daunting at first. We do have multiple variables. We have b, p, x, a, and q. But in reality, we're just using the same general principles that we would use to solve any other equation in algebra. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I recognize that there are some distribution issues that need to be resolved here. So the b needs to be distributed to this term and to this term. And the a needs to be distributed to this term and to this term. So if we distribute the b to the 5px, we're left with 5bpx. And then if we distribute the b to the negative 3c, we're left with negative 3bc. Then we bring down the equal sign, and then we distribute the same thing, do the same thing to the a. We're left with aqx, and then a negative 4a. All right, now we're done with the distribution, so we're left with a little bit simpler explanation here that we can start resolving for our variable. Now, if we are solving for x, because that is what the problem is asking us to do, then what we need to do is now isolate for x. So if I'm isolating for x, I want to find all of the terms that contain x and then move them to one side of the equal sign. So this term here has an x in it, and this term here has an x in it. So I think I'm going to bring them to the left side of the equal sign and everything else onto the right side of the equal sign, because that seems to be a bit easier to me with the negative signs. So first I'm going to bring over this term right here, aqx, and then we will subtract aqx. Okay, and we're left with a big mess here. 5bpx minus 3bc minus aqx is equal to, and these canceled out, negative 4a. There we go. All right, so now we will remove this negative 3bc because this does not actually contain an x. And we will do that by adding 3bc to both sides of the equation. Okay, so we're left with 5bpx minus AQX is equal to a positive 3BC minus 4A. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So at this point, I've recognized that all of my terms on the left side of the equal sign contain an x. Well, if I want to, there's no way for me to solve it currently without getting x all by itself, completely isolated, and get rid of all of the other variables and constants and coefficients and all that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to pull this x and this x out of these terms and multiply them by the quantity 5BP minus AQ. See, now if we were to distribute this x to this term and to this term, then we would have the same statement that we have up here. And then I can continue the equation as 3BC minus 4A that we're just bringing down. All right, so the last step that we can do here to isolate x is we need to get rid of this quantity, 5BP minus AQ. And then if we get rid of that, we'll have x all by itself and we'll have an explanation or a solution for x. Okay, so the way that we're going to do that, since this is multiplication between the x and the quantity, we need to do the opposite to get rid of this quantity. So what we'll do is divide by 5BP minus AQ, and then we'll do the same thing on the other side, divide by 5BP minus AQ, and you can put the parentheses there. So what's going to happen over here, this will cancel with this quantity up here, that just becomes 1. And we're finally left with just x equals 3BC minus 4A all over 5BP minus AQ. And there we are. That's our solution.